This is Pat Salber with the Doctor Weighs In, and we are at Exponential Medicine, and I have a real treat for you because I'm here with Alex Haddad, who's from the University of Toronto. And what are you doing at the University of Toronto?
Well, trying to create as much constructive trouble as possible. So, you see, we academics tend to devote our lives to predicting the future. My question is, what would happen if instead of trying to predict the unpredictable, we decided to create a future in which we would like to live? So how about making our desired future into a self-fulfilling prophecy? So I founded the Center for Global Health Innovation, which is a simulator of the future, where we work together with different communities to imagine what we would like to see in the real world and actually build it together. And I have a new position now, of interim director of the Institute for Global Health Equity and Innovation. And we are trying to look at what we call the sweet spot, which is the intersection between health, equity, and social innovation. So what if we joined forces across the world to create the future?
And what kind of future do you have in mind?
It's a future in which every human being, regardless of who he or she is, or where he or she is, could have the longest, healthiest, happiest possible life, full of love and with no regrets until the last breath, as passengers of a sustainable planet. How about that?
Well, I think it sounds fantastic.
Okay, why don't we do
it? So I have some questions about actually how we do it, because right now is a really interesting time to look at what's going on with disparity in health and other things, money, positions in society and all of that. And we certainly have it you may not have it in Canada, but we certainly have it in the US. But if you look globally, there certainly are countries that it's a little hard for me to imagine now how we could get to that vision and achieve what you've described as a pandemic of health.
Yeah.
How would you do this, for example, in certain areas of the developing world, particularly the areas where there's a lot of strife and war?
Well, first of all, I think we need to pay more attention to what we mean by keywords. For example, the word developing, I don't like. I'm Colombian by birth. In fact, I have a visceral negative reaction to be called developing. When you look at happiness surveys, Colombia is, if not number one, in the top 5. And the US is way down the list. So we tend to, equate development with living like North Americans. Yeah? We need to be very careful with those words.
Right. No, I agree. I agree.
The same applies to these other words. What is health? What is happiness? What is love? Yeah? What is regret? So we started a few years ago in the year 2008 when the World Health Organization was celebrating its 60th birthday. Coincidentally, I had a diagnosis of possible cancer, and I realized that I didn't know what we meant by health. 20 years of university education. And throughout most of that time, I had been focusing on disease. And I had become not a health professional, but a disease professional. I was trained to diagnose and fix things. And there I was in my own hospital as a patient, wondering, well, would I be able to be healthy even if I have cancer? Because I want to be healthy until my last breath. And then it hit me. Do I know what I mean by health? And I didn't. So I asked a question at one of the celebrations of the 60th birthday of the World Health Organization. Do we know what we mean by health? Silence in the room. And then somebody stood up and said, well, we defined health in 1948.
Absence of disease.
As a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just the absence of disease. And I just said, hey, raise your hands. If you have complete physical, mental, and social well-being, well, nobody raised a hand. So it's clear that how we had defined health, okay, which was motivated by good intentions, it was very aspirational, basically condemned us humans not to be healthy. So we had to do something about it. So I had the fortune to work with the British Medical Journal and unleash a global conversation about the meaning of the word health. And 3 years later, we proposed to the world to consider health to be the ability, the capacity of humans as individuals or as members of a community to adapt and to self-manage their lives or our lives when we face physical, mental, or social challenges. And then we started to look at data sets of surveys or coming from surveys or quality of life studies in which people were asked how healthy they felt. And we were shocked to realize that one, most people feel healthy, and two, that we can feel healthy even when we have been labeled as having diseases. Even when we have 3, 4, 5 different chronic diseases, we still can consider ourselves to be healthy. And there is a simple question. There are different versions of this. But it's in general, Pat, how would you rate your health? Is your health poor, fair, good, very good?
Excellent.
Yeah, poor, fair, good, very good, or excellent. You said excellent. Okay. And if you give me 5 minutes, I will diagnose 2 or 3 things in you. I'm a doctor. I'm trained to diagnose diseases. Okay. And in fact, there is a joke in medical circles that health is a state of incomplete diagnosis. And we are challenging that. We are saying health is what people say it is. And if you say you're healthy, you're healthy. And then you may happen to have a high blood sugar reading. Okay, then what do we do about that? Okay, is that contributing to your feeling that your health is poor or fair? Because if it is, we do something about it. Because those people who say that the health is poor or fair have twice the risk of premature death compared with a match group that considers their health to be good, very good, or excellent. So we started to get some insights that have transformed our lives and that led to this Health of Humanity project. So, for example, 2/3 of people with terminal cancer, they know that their cancer is incurable. When you ask them, how would you rate your health? They say, it's good, very good, or excellent. Yeah? What is going on there? And how could we protect whatever is happening in those lives to enable people to continue feeling healthy no matter what? And how could we create the conditions to support those who don't feel healthy? Okay? And medicine has a relatively little role to play there. So one of the big insights we gain is that health and medicine are not the same thing. That medicine has a role in our lives when our health is compromised. And that it's down to me as a person to determine if I'm healthy or not.
What's really a call to action? So we have this insight that health is not the same as absences of disease. In fact, you can have disease and still be healthy. What is it that you would like the people listening to this to do?
A couple of things. The first one is to believe that we all have the opportunity, the possibility, the capacity to be healthy, no matter what. And until our last breath, I as a physician have enabled people to die healthy and happy. The question is, how can we make it possible for everybody? And the second, that if we are going to make it possible, we need to regard this as a challenge of a species at risk of extinction. We need to transcend our traditional boundaries and build on what we have in abundance and stop thinking in terms of scarcity. You see, in Colombia, my native country, 80% of people consider themselves to be healthy. So it's not an issue of having money or infrastructure or a working justice system. It's much more nuanced than that. And it will require a concerted effort by all of us that will benefit us all, you see. And I think we have the tools and the knowledge and the capacity to do it. But the biggest challenge is to transcend our largely imaginary boundaries that are preventing us from making the whole more than the sum of the parts.